In the InfDev stages of Minecraft's development, a brand new structure named simply as the dungeon was added into the game. While they are an interesting concept and can be a great way to farm string, bones, rotten flesh, or most commonly XP, the structures themselves are pretty bland and uninteresting. Later on, in Java Edition Beta, we were also given strongholds and mineshafts. These were much more interesting to find and explore, and were very rewarding finds. But with the ever increasing amount of generated structures and constantly updating build designs of Minecraft, they are becoming more generic and a lot less interesting. So today, I'm going to be exploring 5 different dungeons that I think deserve a spot in the game, as they are a lot more interesting, a lot more rewarding, and have a more updated style. While they aren't too complicated for beginners, I still feel they present a big challenge for players, and look a lot more aesthetically pleasing without taking away from the game's classic style. Before I get started, I'd like to thank Starting Out from my Discord server, who suggested this for my next video. If you'd like to have input into any of my future series, I would highly recommend you join my Discord server, which is linked in the description. It really helps out the channel, and if you'd like to see some of your ideas in this series, I would highly recommend going there. Anyway, the first dungeon I have added is a husk dungeon. Now, husks were added as part of the 1.10 update, but apart from being another zombie variant that gives you hunger when they attack you, they are a pretty generic mob. They really have no other use, and I feel like this dungeon would make them a lot more interesting. Now, the first part of the dungeon involves a ladder. Now, this is actually a lot more difficult than it seems. I would highly recommend bringing a bow to this dungeon, so you can shoot off the husks while you climb it, and then you can take out the spawner with your torches and kill the husks at this point here. Now, the first part here is a fallen bridge, and there are actually 2 paths you can take. The first path is directly on ahead, but the second path you can run onto here and find this hidden chest. Now, I've actually done a bit of redstone, which I very rarely do because I'm not the best at redstone. But basically, when you open up this chest, you fall into a pit of lava. To avoid this and get the rewards, you can sneak on the edge blocks and open it from a distance. There you can access your gold, bones, and rotten flesh, but you do need to be aware of this floor. I think it's a really good trap. It kind of is reminiscent of some sort of Indiana Jones trap, I guess. Anyway, you do have to do a bit of parkour here, unless you have blocks to bridge across, and it is quite difficult if you end up getting hit off by some of the husks. Down below there's actually a spider spawner and also a few chests hidden. This one's behind some vines. You can get a few basic rewards. There are also some spikes and skulls at the bottom, and a spider spawner with things like diamonds, a Bane of Arthropods book, string, and gold ingots. Anyway, once you get back to this bridge, the next thing you need to do is jump onto this platform. And you need to be really careful here because there's actually a tripwire which can be kind of difficult to see in the dark. However, if you accidentally activate it, you'll get fired off the edge with arrows. And occasionally the arrows may hit this button. Now I'm going to show you what they do. And as you can see, they've hit the button here, and it causes an explosion. Ignore the outside world here. Anyway, once you've managed to avoid this trap, you can jump over to this platform here and open the chest here, but you have to be quick. Once you open it up, this will trigger an explosion, and you will have to run pretty quickly to avoid getting killed by it. It may also destroy the spawner, making it a little less easy to make a farm out of it. However, it is kind of worth it because there is still a husk spawner at the start. And to go hand in hand with the husk dungeon, I have added a stray dungeon. Now, strays are basically icy skeletons that were added in the same update as husks, and I personally think this would be a fantastic structure that would spawn in underground snowy biomes. In the centre of the top floor there is a simple chest with things like golden apples, enchanted books, blue ice, and gold and iron, and there is also a husk spawner which you could use to make into a farm, or you could just destroy. Now below it there's a floor of ice which you can break and fall down into the second room. Now, as well as husks spawning naturally in this room or falling from the floor above, there will actually be an illusioner that spawns once in this floor. It will only spawn once, however it will represent a bit of a challenge because there aren't many cases where it actually spawns naturally in the game. The only other scenario where it can spawn in the game is through a certain level of raid, and it is a challenging opponent, and I wish it was used to a greater extent. There are also some rewards here and there which you can access easily, however this one you will have to break some ice, so it's probably a better idea to fight the illusioner before going for this chest. This one has the best rewards and can occasionally have an enchanted golden apple. Next up is actually a slime dungeon. Now you will be immediately greeted with a slime spawner that will spawn smaller slimes in the top floor. You could take this out or use it to create a farm later on in the game. You can then jump down into the floor below and tackle the spawner here and the chests. This is a very simple dungeon. It's more PvP orientated rather than with traps or a boss fight such as with the illusioner. However, it's still fun, fairly simple, and a basic one more for beginners. It's also a great way to make a slime farm, making it slightly less difficult and unpredictable, and it makes it a more interesting aspect of the game. For my penultimate design, I actually have a sunken cave, and this would be in any biome really, but mostly in plains biomes or particularly under ocean or river biomes. This would have pipes with flowing water all around the rooms and would be filled to the brim with kelp. As well as this, it would be filled with sea pickles, dead coral, magma, gold, and barrels. Now these barrels and spilt gold will have all sorts of rewards, particularly things such as tridents, hearts of the sea, and gold nuggets, and even conduits. This makes it really rewarding, however it's also very difficult. Drowns would spawn really frequently, and when they spawn with a trident, this would make them extremely difficult to face up against. While the spawner could be adapted to make a drowned farm, it's also recommended that you take it out with torches or some other blocks, because the drowns can be really dangerous and can really pack quite a punch if they spawn too often. However, the barrels do make it just as rewarding with the gold, the conduits, and the tridents, so I'd highly recommend you tackle this dungeon really carefully for the best results. Of course, once again, this is a more PvP orientated one. However, it's got more interesting underwater mechanics that we were introduced to in 1.13. The magma blocks create an interesting mechanic where you're pulled to the floor, faced with the drowned, and it's much harder to escape, which can make it a pain if you're trying to escape from them while swimming up. And last but certainly not least, we have what I like to call the Nether Arena. Now, I'm actually going to kill some of the mobs here because it's a bit overcrowded. This would need balancing slightly because the mob spawner at the top particularly does spawn way too many blazes at the moment. But as you can see, this would spawn beneath lava lakes or in caves. And this is a really needed structure because the only structure at the moment in the Nether dimension is the Nether Fortress, and it's kind of bland. The only real thing it's used for right now is the Wither Skeleton Skull farms. Anyway, in the centre there would be a magma cube spawner, and there would also be a chest with golden apples and gold, nether quartz, enchanted books, obsidian, etc, etc. And there would also be a lava pit gathering in the centre with lava dripping and draining from the lava lake above. There would also be a blaze spawner dangling from some sort of obsidian spike or column at the top, and this would spawn blazes all around the room. Now, the lack of treasure is made up by the spawners, because this would be extremely useful for making some sort of nether farm. The materials you'd be able to get from it would be excellent, especially the blaze rods and the magma cream. Now, I've kind of adapted a suggestion from Camille. I wasn't really able to make the model since I don't really know how to make models, but I used a resource pack which converts a zombie pigmen to big piglins, which is in the description. Now, Camille, on my Discord server, he suggested adding some sort of half hoglin. Now, this would be similar to that, but instead it would be like a half piglin, or some sort of pig-based minotaur. And this would acts like a boss in this dungeon, and would be larger than your average piglin. While I wasn't actually able to replicate it in the game, I personally think it would look great and would have some really strong attacks, making this a really challenging arena. Paired with the blazes and the magma cubes, this could be really difficult, especially as mobs gather around, and I personally think it will be a great addition to the game. So, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please, as usual, leave any suggestions down below. Thank you very much for 75 subscribers. We're getting very close to 100. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time. Goodbye.